My name's Michael Sassine, and I'm the CEO and founder of Veterans Education and Transitional Services Incorporated and PTSDworkshops.com, and both are a 501c3 nonprofit organization that is designed to work with PTSD victims on different levels. I have PTSD from the military in the early 70s. I entered the Navy as a teenager, and I returned home as a man with a totally different demeanor, personality, and way of thinking, and I didn't recognize it. I had no idea most of my life that PTSD was dictating my life until I started the National Center for PTSD in Menlo, California in June of 2006. And it was there that I learned about PTSD symptoms and how they can affect your life in a negative way. And it was there that I gained tools to keep my PTSD symptoms in check. Due to my PTSD, I was a workaholic. I either taught high school and built furniture, or I was in the Navy and built furniture, but both were full-time ventures. And this was to run from my intrusive memories. I realize that now. Due to my PTSD, as I mentioned, I was an overachiever. In my furniture business in 1986, I was commissioned by President Reagan to design and build a piece of furniture for the Oval Office in the White House. And as a high school teacher, in the school years 1997 through 2003, the program that I taught was the best program in its area in the entire nation. In 2004, my father, my best friend, mentor, support, as well as the only human that knew my story, died. When Dad died, it set my PTSD symptoms off with vengeance. And it's important for me to mention here that with PTSD, the way it works, trauma can bring trauma back, and this happens pretty often. And this is what my dad's death did to me. And I've seen this play out repeatedly in work I've done in the past 14 years with retired military that have become veterans, and recently with retired police officers. In a 4-year period of time, I had a heart attack, I had a stroke, I had colon cancer with half my colon removed, I had a torn esophagus twice, and almost died and had to take blood transfusions. And VA hospital shut my kidneys down, giving me a large dose of lithium and not following up on the blood test to check my lithium levels in my bloodstream. All of these medical issues are mentioned because they made it unable for me to work and confined me to a wheelchair. Having nothing to do with my busy mind, intrusive memories of my traumatic events took my mind hostage, and it sent me to the National Center for PTSD, as I mentioned earlier. When I arrived at the National Center for PTSD in June of 2006, my spot was gone because Katrina wiped out 4 VA hospitals in the Panhandle, and those 4 hospitals had to farm out their inpatient to the other hospitals around the country, so my spot was gone because of that. And when I arrived, after sleeping 5 days in the streets while in a wheelchair, I ended up in one of the worst shelters in the nation for 4.5 months, waiting on my spot to reopen in the National Center for PTSD. The shelter was filthy, unhealthy, not to mention it was a dangerous place. There was fights going on every day or every night. Finally, my spot in the National Center opened, and by now I knew this was my survival if I wanted to survive PTSD and live a halfway normal life. So my mind became a sponge, and I learned all I could learn about PTSD. and sitting in a group of 10 men's men, all combat veterans, in a small group, and crying at each other's story was so profound to me. I developed a passion to help others with PTSD and made a commitment to God to do the same. And the stories are amazing, what veterans go through, and some of the stories of what police officers go through, and how it can just come back. At the center, I was connected with Celebrate Recovery, or CR, and met a family that loved me at first sight. And I bring CR to the table because this is where I promote, in the workshops, I promote support systems and support groups. And CR offers these types of support groups and support systems through their small group. Their small groups are gender specific, and the programs are offered in churches around the community. It's a Christ-based 12-step program that's not necessarily designed for substance abuse. It's more so designed for hurts, habits, and hang-ups. Some examples of the groups would be the gender-specific PTSD groups, or family groups, or a group for people who've lost close loved ones. So that presents a perfect place to take off from our PTSD workshops to a support group that we promote so heavily. Learning about my real problem and having the support from CR and the knowledge that I learned in the center was a life-changing experience for me. You know, after I completed the National Center, I wrote my book and published it in 2009. It's about my experience, my PTSD experience. And in 2010, I started the University of Memphis, keeping my commitment to God and myself, and started studying psychology, and graduated cum laude in December of 2013. And I continued at the University of Memphis to earn a master's degree in public and nonprofit administration, and then continued and earned a graduate certification in philanthropy and nonprofit leadership, all graduating with distinction. And I mention this as a testimony to God because I won the Dean's Award for the special achievement for the work that I did on and off campus. All the stuff I was able to do on campus that played into my GPA was amazing, because I'm dyslexic, ADHD, and PTSD, and all are learning disorders. So you know, God made this happen in my life. Our 2.5 to 3 hour PTSD workshops have been successful with abused women in the recent 6 months. And we started working with police officers, some retired police officers, first responders, and we're fixing to design our curriculum for hospital medical professionals. It's going to be a big area. Before I close, I want to revisit 2 previously visited points. First point being, a PTSD victim can live a semi-normal life until another traumatic event. It could be a car wreck, it could be a 9/11, it could be loss of a child, it could be loss of a grandchild. I could go on, but until another trauma and then the old trauma comes back, it manifests a lot of problems. Many PTSD victims only deal with a few of the symptoms, and quite often in my work I found these symptoms to include substance abuse, to self-medicate, anger and insomnia, and often in that order. I dealt with anger and insomnia. The second point I want to drive home is how medical issues took my ability away to work and confined me to a wheelchair. I had nothing to do but listen to the intrusive memories I had no support group. I had no clue really what was going on or how to get a support group. I've seen this in retirement so many times, especially with active duty personnel when they retire and become a veteran. And recently I've seen it with some police officers. Our workshops are designed to help the quality of life for PTSD victims as well as their families. And this is before and after retirement. I strongly feel like these 2.5 to 3 hour PTSD workshops are very helpful and will pay off in the long run. At PTSD workshops, we not only address the victim, we address the victim's family as well. And this is important. You know, I see the workshops as a vaccination to PTSD. The family member that takes the workshop notices the PTSD victim's symptoms coming on before they get out of hand and before the victim notices it, and can get the victim to seek professional help. The way our workshops have played out in the past, it's most often the family member that calls and asks me, what do I say in this particular situation? What do I do in this particular situation? Or you know, do I need to wear kid gloves with this, or do I need to be fact of the matter? A million questions can come up, and that's where, you know, at this point is where we get together and work with the victim on the best way to handle the situation and where the support is, and any other way that we can help. I want to thank you a lot for listening to this testimony. I hope it wasn't boring. I just wanted to give some information about my life and why I started the program and what the program is going to do for people. You know, I would love for you to go to www.ptsdworkshops.com. That's workshops plural, or www.ptsdworkshops.com. And go to the 5th page, which is the PTSD skills page, and at the bottom you'll find a button to download the PTSD workshop curriculum. Go ahead and download that curriculum. It's a PDF file. It got picked up as a college psych textbook, so once the publisher gets in the mix, then they're going to want their money out of the end of it. So, and with that said, I want to thank you a lot for taking the time again, and if you know anybody with PTSD, please pass them on to us. Have a good day.